Hey everyone, it's Tiffany here with my 200-pound journey, and I'm bringing you the much asked for video about dating in Japan while overweight. I've gotten messages on Instagram over the years about this, and even sometimes there's comments on my videos below about they're interested in knowing about dating in Japan, especially as a plus size woman. So, my disclaimer here before I even get into this video is that this is my own personal experiences that I have heard from other Japanese women, other Japanese men, from foreigners that I've heard their stories or read their stories through forums that I've been included in. So, these are just things that are from my experience, and it's probably not going to be the same for everybody. I mean, obviously, everyone doesn't live the same experiences. Everyone thinks a little differently, so you can take that as you want with what I'm going to say. But it is not law. It is not 100% everyone is like this. Obviously, there are outliers in every situation. The next thing, too, that I want to say to this disclaimer is that I think dating across the board, especially online dating, you're going to have your F-boys, your ghosting, your leading you on, the cheating. I think that's across the board. It is not a specifically to Japanese men thing. It's not specific to Japan. That is just across the board. I think any country you go to, you're going to have that issue. So now that those are out of the way and I have some time this morning, I am going to go ahead and go over my experience and my thoughts kind of on the dating culture in Japan, especially when you're overweight. So I think there are one thing that I need to point out in general is that you have to think about Japan as a whole. How many people are actually in the dating bracket, like in that dating age range bracket for you, right? So if you're like 21 and you're looking to date around, how many people do you think are actually around your dating age? You got to think Japan is a slow birth rate country. It's been all over the news. They're trying to let more immigration happen because there's just not enough workers. The population is too old. There's not enough younger people. So you have to think about that compared to going to a bigger country like the UK or Canada or America or any other country that's not having birth rate problems. The pool of people in your dating age or wanting to even get married is going to be much smaller just because of that. So that's the first thing. We're going to top that off. So the next thing is that in general, I'm looking at this as a woman to a man thing. I'm not looking at this as LGBTQ. I'm not looking at anything like that. Specifically, this is just for me as a woman dating men, right? That in general, the overall census of the type of couples that are in Japan. There are news articles about this. There are comments about this and everywhere. It is more common to see a Japanese woman married to a foreigner man or dating a foreigner man than it is to see a Japanese man dating or marrying a foreigner woman. And that just comes down to a culture thing. Many, from what I have been told from my Japanese female colleagues or friends, or even reading online or seeing interviews, is that some Japanese women want to break out of that, you know, housewife, the stereotypical cultural Japanese life, or like the way that their husbands don't communicate. You got to be strong and at work all the time. They want to break out of that, so they start dating outside with foreign men who are more open, more communication, or maybe they're more aggressive. I can't speak for everybody, but that's just the general box that you read about or hear about. While Japanese men, they tend to not want to deal with a cultural difference. They're too worried or too upset to think about having a marriage with someone whose culture maybe doesn't match. Now, again, this is not for everybody, but it is a general thing that is talked about in the news and stuff. And I have heard it and seen it firsthand. Case in point, like my brother-in-law, wonderful man. He is a gentleman. He's been trying to find someone to marry. But my foreigner friends, unfortunately, because he does not speak English, he does not want to go through what I go through sometimes, where I cannot communicate with my mother-in-law or my father-in-law or him very well because I'm still learning Japanese. He doesn't want to go through that. He speaks no English. So he doesn't want to marry a foreigner because he does not want to deal with the language barrier with her family. Not with her family, right? And I respect that. I understand that, right? So then that brings me down to after you take those things out. So you got like not a lot of men aren't dating foreigners, and then your small dating pool. So the top 3 things I would say for me when I came here for dating would be number 1, my location. Number 2, the language barrier, which I just kind of touched based on. And 3, the actual level of overweight you are, right? So let's start with the first thing here is location. If you live in somewhere in the Tokyo area or like Osaka or I don't know, you go down to Okinawa where there's a lot more foreigners and a lot more Japanese people speak English in Okinawa, at least from what I've been told. It could not be true. I don't know. So from those location places, your dating pool is going to be much bigger than if you live in a very, very small town. And that's because a lot of younger people are moving to Tokyo and the bigger areas to the jobs because there's better paying jobs, or they just want to get out of their small towns. So your dating pool is already much bigger. And then you also have the dating pool of other foreigners. So I would say if this is your dating pool as a regular person, a regular sized person, like you're not overweight at all, I'd say probably 40% or 30% is Japanese people, Japanese men, and then the rest is other foreigners who would want to date you from other countries or from your actual own country. So when you think about that, I would say there's a much smaller percentage of Japanese men that will date the Japanese foreigner women, but you have a better chance of it in a bigger city than you do in the smaller city. So like take for instance, in my small town, we only have like 24,000 people, I think. And everyone's just really retired and old, or they're already married, or they're divorced with children, and it is what it is, right? I was very, very lucky to meet my husband naturally the way I did. I thought it was impossible, but obviously not. The second thing, language. As you would know, if you know anything about Japan, Japan's national language is Japanese, and everyone speaks it, obviously. Everything's in Japanese. And even though the Japanese people, especially over the recent generations, have been learning English from like first grade all the way up to high school, they don't really speak it. They just don't. It's a little sad to me sometimes to meet old students that I've taught for 4 or 5 years, and they cannot answer basic, like, how are you, which is something that they're asked every morning in class to drill that in their head, right? And so it is a little sad. So if you don't speak any Japanese, the amount of Japanese people you can date, especially if you're not in a big city like Tokyo, is minuscule. Like in my 6 years of living in this small town, I've only met a few men that are in the dating age range that I would have been that actually spoke some English. Everyone else is either retired or they're a child. But when you go into places like Tokyo, you'll find a lot more people who speak English. So yeah, definitely learn the language. I would say you need to have, if you're looking at like a Japanese language proficiency test, like JLPT, N3 is conversation level. N2 would be you can actually fully function in society a little bit better. N4 is so. You're not really gonna get around basic questions. So if you're looking to like seriously date somebody who does not speak English, you definitely need to have your Japanese level up. If you don't speak any Japanese, just know your dating pool is going to be even smaller. Take out the size thing and be even smaller. And then the third thing, as I was saying, is the level of overweight you are. So, your normal weight in America is probably 2 overweight here. So you're already going to be, as a foreigner, maybe no Japanese or little Japanese, and then being normal weight, your dating pool's already going to be smaller than Japanese women, right? Or another foreigner who's like extremely thin. Then you add in like, if you add in like you're 50 pounds overweight, your dating pool gets smaller. 100 pounds overweight, dating pool gets smaller. Then if you're extremely overweight like me, your dating pool is practically non-existent. Practically. Now, I will say that it is possible. I did go on 2 dates when I was trying to date, and they were with other foreigners. They were not with Japanese men. And then I met my husband by chance, by luck, and that's how it is, right? So just know, if you are extremely overweight, not that I want to discourage you, because obviously it's not impossible. I got married. But your dating pool is extremely small, extremely small. Unlike in America, where maybe you get a lot of guys who are interested in you, extremely small here. So that's kind of the base touch on dating, I think, in general for people, and then your sizes, right? So now let me get into the actual dating as being plus size. So when I first started trying to date, I originally did Bumble and Tinder. And because of my location, and I was looking for people who spoke English, the amount of men that you could actually like swipe or even message was super small. Especially if I try to put it near my local area where I could actually drive to go on dates with these people. And it was super small. And then out of that, maybe like, I think on Bumble, there was only like 15 guys on Bumble that were in the area that spoke English. And then on Tinder, there was maybe like 50. And a lot of those 50, like I would say only 10 of them were Japanese men. And on Bumble, it was all foreigners. So in my area, within like an hour driving distance on the apps there that spoke English, there wasn't a lot of people. That's like, what, 60 people? So you got to think, those 60 people are probably looking for someone who's not extremely overweight, or maybe they're just not attracted to me, and that's fine. I'm not going to sit here and be like, you have to be attracted to me, blah, blah, blah. No, everyone has their preferences, and that's fine. So through the Bumble app, I had 2 men that had talked to me, and the one was just like, I really quickly realized he was just an F-boy. So I deleted his messages. I blocked him. I didn't talk to him. And then the other guy was a Jamaican guy who lived up in the bigger city around me. So we chatted for a while. He was extremely nice, but he was moving. And we did end up going out on one date. It was really fun. He was really nice. We had a good time. And then we just were like, you know what? You're leaving for Tokyo. We don't want anything serious. It's cool. So I did do that. And then I deleted Bumble because there was nobody on Bumble in my area, right? If I put it to Tokyo, there was tons and tons of people. But I personally just did not have the money or the time to be going out to Tokyo to try to date people. And then on Tinder, I did find and match with a bunch of guys who ended up being in Tokyo. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to try to go to Tokyo during one of my vacations. And I know I just said I deleted Bumble because there was just nobody on there. But, so yeah, and in Tinder, there was probably about 4 or 5 Japanese men that tried to talk to me. And one African guy and one guy from an Arab nation. I forget which one. I can't remember. And I can't remember which place in Africa the other guy was from. But through talking with them, I very quickly realized that some of them were just, again, F-boys. They didn't want anything but to just have a good time. One of the Japanese men, they could not speak English at all, and I told them using Google Translate that I'm sorry, my Japanese is not good enough. I'm looking for a serious thing. And that Japanese man would just keep sending me big paragraphs in Japanese that I had to translate. That was just like, it's fine, we can work it out. Let me take a train and I'll stay in your city for a whole weekend and we can just have a really good time. I'll take you out. We'll have a good time. And I was just like, no, why would I do that? That's not what I want. Not my cup of tea. Sorry. So after telling him no a few times, I finally blocked him because he just would not stop insisting that he was going to take a train up to my city. And it was very, very apparent that all he wanted was a fun time for a weekend. Then the other Japanese guy, I thought he was very nice, kind of nerdy. He spoke some English in Tokyo, but it became very apparent very quickly that he had a fat fetish. So he very much just wanted to know like the size of my butt. He wanted pictures of my butt in yoga pants. He wanted to know if I was working out just to get rid of my stomach, but I wasn't going to get rid of my butt or my chest. Or I wasn't going to get too skinny, because at the time I was working out and trying to lose weight. I was very close to my 50 pounds off. And I found this to be hilarious because, I mean, obviously there's like uh, people who have fat fetishes, like they want their partner to be big, they want them to be bigger, they want to date someone who's bigger, and there's that whole thing, right? Everyone knows that there's that fetish. And some people call them feeders, for people who try to feed someone until they pretty much die. But it was just so interesting to me because normally they kind of cover it up, but this guy was just like straight to it. Like, it was just very interesting how very straightforward and direct he was about those things. Now, he never came out exactly and just said, I want you to stay big, but he definitely was just like, oh, you shouldn't lose weight. I like big butts. Can you send me your yoga pants pictures? And I would just, of course, I did not send those pictures because people can put anything on the line that they want from you, so I don't take those kind of pictures. I just don't. My own personal preference. Anybody wants to do it, that's on you. That's all you. That's your opinion. I just don't do it because you never know. Someone could be malicious and put that stuff online. And if you're going to put my picture online and make money from it or whatever, then I should be the one making the money from it. So that happened then. And then also when I had visited Tokyo, I had this one guy I'd been talking to for a while, and I did come to Tokyo, and I was like, oh, we should meet up and have a date, have a coffee. And all he wanted was for me to come to his house and play the Wii U and chill. So not Netflix and chill, but play a video game and chill. And I was just like, no, I just want to have an actual date. Like, I really didn't want to, like, I'm in Tokyo. I want to go on a date. So unfortunately, the men that I was talking to that were Japanese from Tokyo, they all were just looking for a fun time, or they had a fetish about me being overweight. Whether it's they want that big butt or whatever their thing is, right? And then the two foreigners, the one foreigner ended up coming to my small town, and he drove here from Tokyo, and I was in shock, but apparently he was really well off, pretty rich, I think. So he drove his really nice car up here, and then he complained to me the whole time about his drive here, and I was like, well, I told you didn't have to. You just kind of got in the car and started driving, and I picked a restaurant in my town, and he got at my place very late, and then we had been talking for a couple weeks on the app, and then he went back to Tokyo. I did not invite him to my apartment. I had work in the morning, and I just not that kind of girl. I was not feeling it with him like that. So he went back to Tokyo, and then maybe he talked about maybe me coming down to Tokyo, and then that's it. He ghosted me. So I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done with this. I kind of was like, all right, I am kind of thinking of moving to Tokyo anyways, because I felt like my career was going to go nowhere in my small town. And I wanted to break out of the English teacher kind of box that gets put on to foreigners. And so I was already kind of planning to go live in like Tokyo. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to keep focus on my weight loss, and then I'm going to leave. And then literally 2 weeks after I deleted all my apps and said, I'm done dating. It's just I'm tired of everyone just fetishizing me, or the dating pool is really small because I don't live in Tokyo. Literally, I met my husband 2 weeks after that. I met him naturally at an Ikaiwa class. Ikaiwa is like a language exchange class. And so the rest is history, obviously. Like, we hit it off, we went on dates, he's very sweet, and then we confessed, and then we started dating, and then bada bing, bada boom, we were married a couple years later. So yeah, so that's kind of what my personal experience was dating in here, and I very quickly realized that if I didn't lose more weight, I probably would have had I probably would have had a harder time using online. So I would say my advice, if you are overweight or even in general in dating, because I am also a part of like online foreigner dating things on like Facebook groups and stuff. And one thing is like everyone talks about online dating is really terrible here because there's just so much to sift through, because like I said, that dating pool is already so small, right? And then you add in all those other factors, like your dating pool might be just this big. It's really difficult, I think, regardless of your size, to date as a foreigner here, especially with the location and language barrier. Um, I do think that you should try, if you do come here to live, you should try to involve yourself in your community and try to go out and do things and join groups. And I know that's easier said than done. People have anxiety, people have social interaction. Again, the language barrier, depending on what city you live in. I was very lucky that when I got here, I joined the International Association and I made myself go, even though it was kind of boring, every Friday to help them with their English conversation. And now I actually teach that English conversation class. But that's how I've made all my friends. I've made tons of friends of all age groups here that are Japanese. I've been in touch with almost every foreigner that's come through as an English teacher because I have them come and volunteer and help if they're interested. And then again, that's how I met my husband, was doing that. So I think that the more you put yourself out there outside of online dating, you might find somebody easier to date. And then the last thing I want to say about Japan as a culture is that going back to like my brother-in-law trying to find somebody, is that it has actually been in the news, and there's news articles written, there's Twitter feeds in Japan and stuff going on about this, is that many Japanese people are not marrying. They're not interested in making a family. They're not interested in kids. They're just interested in dating. Maybe just having a fun time. So again, this is not encompassing everybody, obviously. But it is a trend now that a lot of people are just not dating. So like my brother-in-law is having a really hard time trying to find a Japanese woman who's interested in marriage. And so if you come here and you're looking for marriage and you're looking to be more serious, then you definitely have to put yourself out there. You definitely have to go do things that maybe you wouldn't normally do, like go out to club things or whatever, to find people who aren't online. And that's the other thing too. Online dating is still not as big as it is in America. And I think it is growing, and I could be wrong. But from what I know, like even my brother-in-law is just like, oh, I don't really I want to meet people naturally through friends or going to dating parties where you meet in person. Like the whole online thing is still considered kind of scary here for some people, especially out in the smaller towns. So you have to think about that too when you want to come here to date. And then the last thing I'm going to touch on too is you might have heard this term if you've watched any other dating videos, and it's gaijin hunter. So in Japanese, gaikokujin is foreigner, and then the short version of that is gaijin, which some people can see as derogatory or racist or just like a mean way of calling someone a foreigner. Now, I will say the foreigner community calls ourselves gaijins. In general, we don't really take it as like it's bad, but I have had where a student called me a gaijin and the teacher went off. Like she was so angry at this kid for calling me a gaijin. And she's like, you will respect your teacher. You will call her, by her name. You will not call her a gaijin. And I was not upset about it, but I felt really bad for the kid. But that's everyone's opinion is different on that word. But specifically, it's a term that we use. It's called gaijin hunter. And these are Japanese men who their whole thing is to how many countries can I get on my bedpost? How many notches? I got that girl from Germany, I got that girl from Canada, I got the girl from America, I got the girl from Korea, And they specifically will go on to things like Tinder and stuff, and they will woo you. They will take you on dates until they get you into bed. Like, they're going to be probably pushy the whole time trying to get you into bed. And as soon as they get you into bed, they're gone. And I'm sure they have that in other countries. There's people like that, I'm sure. But it's very common knowledge here that we know this. Like, if you go to, there's a place called The Hub. It's like a British pub. That is known as like the hunting grounds because a lot of foreigners go there. So a lot of Japanese men go there to get foreigner women. So that's another thing too. So if you're all about just having a fun time, that's fine. You probably would have all the opportunities you'd want, especially if you're in like Tokyo area or whatever. Just be safe, be careful. Sexual assault is still a problem here, and people drugging people at the clubs, that's a thing here too, and just people being very forceful, and other foreigners create problems too sometimes. So yeah, that's all I have to say about it. I know this video is a little long, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Again, this video is just for my own personal opinion and what I've seen, heard, read in my 6 years of living here so far. And I'm sure it's going to change. It's going to evolve as more and more immigrants come to Japan to help with the workforce. So yeah, it's not impossible, and I think that if you want to give it a try, give it a try. But if you may get discouraged, you may feel like, oh, there's no point. And I did get to that point. And I know many women in that I have read their stories or have seen them in my forums have the same thing happen. And then boom, we meet our husbands or long-term boyfriends or whoever. So just, try to be yourself. Don't change yourself for anybody, and, don't settle. That's my biggest advice, and just keep trying. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. So yeah, thanks for watching. If there's any other kind of video you'd like to know about, just let me know down in the comments below. And I'll try my best to make a video of my opinion or whatever that thing is. And let's all just keep trying to win in this game called life. All right, bye guys.